Baseball in Japan looks like a carnival from the outside. Managers arrive on hovercrafts. Star players zipline hundreds of feet through the air. Ceremonial first pitches involve skits, costumes, and sometimes even players kissing the person throwing the ball. It feels playful, ridiculous, almost unserious. And that's what makes the truth so hard to believe. Beneath the spectacle, Japanese baseball culture is one of the most ruthless, disciplined, and demanding systems in sports history, a system that has quietly turned Japan into a baseball superpower. In Japan, baseball isn't just a game. It's a way to teach discipline, obedience, sacrifice, and endurance. At elite high schools, coaches can make over $200,000 a year and control nearly every aspect of a player's life. Kids are expected to practice 7 to 8 hours a day. Pitchers routinely throw 200 pitches every other day, a number that will cause outrage in America. Players are expected to cry after losses because not crying is seen as proof they didn't care enough. And this level of intensity doesn't stop with players. Even the cheering sections go through months of brutal training, practicing chants and synchronized routines with the same seriousness as the athletes on the field. Ichiro once said that as a child, his training schedule was so intense, he only had 5 or 6 hours total in an entire year to hang out with friends. That mindset, total devotion is everywhere. Professional players are often required to live in team dormitories full-time, sometimes even as millionaires. Breaking curfew has, in past eras, resulted in players being beaten by their own managers. This became so widespread that in 2021, Human Rights Watch released a report specifically addressing abuse in Japanese sports. And yet, despite all this, Japan didn't always dominate baseball. In the mid-1900s, American teams would travel to Japan and absolutely destroy Japanese all-star teams. One Japanese player famously said, "We're a team of little leaguers playing adults. We can never challenge the Americans." For decades, that felt true. Fast forward to today, and everything has changed. Japan went undefeated in the most recent World Baseball Classic and won the tournament for the 3rd time. No other country has even won it twice. Viewership numbers in Japan dwarf anything baseball gets in the United States. Shohei Ohtani became the highest-paid baseball player in history. Weeks later, Yoshinobu Yamamoto became the highest-paid pitcher ever. MLB teams signed 6 Japanese players in one offseason for a combined $1.13 billion. A country once dismissed as inferior is now reshaping the sport. America claimed for over a century. To understand how that happened, you have to go back to how baseball arrived in Japan. When the sport was introduced in the 1800s, the Japanese language didn't even have a word for sport. Physical activities were things like sumo, kendo, and horseback riding, extensions of military training. Early baseball coaches treated players like soldiers. One legendary manager said that if players didn't practice hard enough to vomit blood, they couldn't expect to win. He created a system literally called death practice, where players fielded ground balls until they collapsed, foamed at the mouth, and couldn't move. In early Japanese baseball, if you tried to dodge a pitch and got hit, you didn't get first base because avoiding the ball meant you lacked courage. Losing without tears was seen as disgraceful. Baseball wasn't about fun. It was about forging character through suffering. That philosophy still echoes today, especially in high school baseball. Nowhere is this more visible than the Summer Koshien Tournament, the most important sporting event in Japan. During Koshien, a professional team is forced to vacate its own stadium for 2 weeks. Over 500,000 fans attend in person. On a per capita basis, its viewership rivals the Super Bowl. To even qualify, teams must survive a single elimination bracket of over 4,000 schools. One loss ends everything. Players sacrifice everything for this tournament. Many schools force players to shave their heads. Teams practice up to 12 hours a day during holidays. Rosters can exceed 100 players, but only 20 are allowed in the dugout, meaning most players endure years of brutal, training just to watch from the stands if their team qualifies. And when injuries happen, quitting is rarely an option. There are countless examples. A player dislocated his shoulder, had it pop back into place in the dugout, and ran back onto the field. Another was knocked unconscious, carted off, and returned minutes later. A catcher lost multiple teeth after being hit in the face and stayed in the game, later hitting a double. Suffering without quitting is considered honorable. Sometimes it goes even further. In one infamous game, an elite school beat another 82-0. The losing team had no substitutions. One player suffered heat stroke, but stayed in the game to avoid forfeiting. Their pitcher threw 225 pitches in an 82-run blowout. In America, both coaches would be fired. In Japan, both teams were praised for trying their hardest because giving full effort, no matter the score, is seen as respect. This mindset creates legends. Daisuke Matsuzaka threw 500 pitches in 4 days at Koshien, including a 17-inning complete game, then a no-hitter in the final. Masahiro Tanaka and Yuki Sato faced off in a final, where Sato threw 948 pitches across the tournament. These performances destroyed arms, ended some careers early, and turned teenagers into lifelong icons. Critics call this child abuse, and in extreme cases, it absolutely is. An 11-year-old once died after a brutal practice involving miles of running with no water. Coaches have been caught on video hitting and kicking players. Human Rights Watch documented players being beaten with bats and balls. Japan has started cracking down, banning corporal punishment and limiting pitch counts. But the culture remains unforgiving. What complicates the picture is that the results are undeniable. Studies show Japanese players actually suffer fewer injuries overall than American players. The training builds endurance, discipline, and mental toughness. And once players reach the pros, the lifestyle barely changes. Professional baseball in Japan is famously strict. Practices are longer. Off-seasons are shorter. Players report for training immediately after the season ends. Spring training can involve throwing hundreds of pitches in a single bullpen or fielding 1,000 ground balls in one session. Players live in dormitories with curfews, scheduled meals, and permission required to leave. Even stars worth millions often stay by choice, believing isolation improves focus. Players are seen less as individual stars and more as employees of the organization. Until 2001, agents were illegal. Even now, agents are tightly restricted. Holding out for more money is viewed as selfish. There has been only one player strike in league history, and during it, players still showed up to sign autographs. This collectivist mindset clashed violently with American players who came to Japan. Some quit, some were hated. Foreign players chasing records were intentionally walked to protect Japanese legends. But over time, things shifted. The turning point came with Hideo Nomo. By exploiting a loophole, he retired from Japanese baseball at 25 and joined the Dodgers. He dominated immediately. Japan watched every pitch. MLB realized Japanese players weren't just talented, they were a massive market. Then Ichiro arrived and shattered every stereotype. MVP, batting titles, global superstardom. He inspired a generation. Shohei Ohtani is the ultimate product of this system, obsessively devoted, self-sacrificing, and historically dominant. He gave up nearly $200 million just to reach MLB sooner. The 2023 World Baseball Classic proved what Japan had been building for a century. Japan went undefeated, beat the United States head-to-head, drew over 60 million viewers for the final. The highest paid hitter and pitcher in baseball are now Japanese. More are coming. From the outside, Japanese baseball looks like chaos and pageantry. Inside, it's discipline, sacrifice, and relentless commitment. A paradox that only makes sense when you realize that in Japan, baseball isn't about comfort or fun. It's about honor. And now, after a century of suffering, Japan isn't just participating in America's game anymore. They're taking it over. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most intense sports cultures on Earth, make sure to subscribe and share this with someone who loves baseball beyond the box score.